You know,
Well,
that's all. No.
Well, I am instructed by your review of 20th century history. I also accept your commentary that these issues are complex. But if you're going to argue that the complexity of the circumstances in the former Yugoslavia at this moment give you the ability to, in good conscience, essentially pray for God's blessing here and hope that something good happens, then you can't really consistently condemn other people who might likewise bring, for example, their own hesitation, as many did in the 30s, about whether America firsters, Charles Lindbergh, Joseph P. Kennedy, the former ambassador to the Court of St. James. All, you know, you can't stand on a high moral mountain and suggest that somehow shame should come down to them, because they are likewise hand-wringing because of the complexity that existed prior to American involvement in World War II.
Well, I'm sorry, but no one proposed going to war against Hitler. No one in high places. And in fact, the State Department, right up until 1937, was saying, yeah, we got to support Hitler as the moderate. I mean, we can talk, you know, we can talk about what should have happened, but let's separate it from what did happen.
All right.
Now, in this case, or in the case of Hitler, or in much more crucial cases, like the case of Vietnam or Central America, much more crucial because we could do something about it, what you ask is, are there policies that I can, in conscience, recommend because of their likely beneficial human consequences? That's what a moral person does if he's going to be consistent. Now, in the case of, say, Vietnam, in the case of atrocities carried out by our own state or client states, there are almost always things to do straight off. In the case of atrocities carried out by some enemy state or some, you know, let's say Sri Lanka, some place that we just have no serious connection with, very often there just isn't a lot that you can do. You can pontificate about it, but you can't suggest things that will help. Now, in the case of Yugoslavia, what you have to ask, if you care about the people, if you care about the human beings, not your own, you know, sort of preening your feathers, then you ask, what are the likely human consequences, say, for the people of Yugoslavia or the region, if we do X?
Right.
And you have to ask, well, what are those consequences? So let's say, suppose somebody proposes an American invasion of Serbia, okay? Then we ask, well, what are the likely consequences? Or let's say a UN invasion.
Yeah.
Then we say, well, what are the likely consequences? Well, I mentioned some of the possible ones, and they're not very pretty. In fact, they might end up, and are likely to end up, harming the people much more. So therefore, if you want, you can pontificate. You can say, look, what a great moral figure I am. I think we should do X, Y, and Z. But that's not being a moral human being. A moral human being is someone who's, what are the consequences of what I'm recommending?
Mm-hmm. So you separate yourself from, for example, Anthony Lewis of the New York Times.
Well, if he had a proposal, I would be
he wants
interested.
to, among other things, provide helicopter air-to-surface artillery against gun emplacements surrounding Sarajevo.
He wants to provide arms to the Bosnians, I believe.
Well, I think allowing them
You've
to get
already
arms,
given the green light to that, I'm understanding.
I mean, I think that's a plausible proposal.
Right.
Whether helicopter gunships could silence the guns is something that Anthony Lewis doesn't know and that I don't know. And you have to find that out before you make the proposal. See, it's all very well to say, well, let's call in helicopter gunships to stop the guns. Will it do it? Well, I don't know, and he doesn't know.
Or will it escalate it to the next level?
In fact, is it even technically possible?
I mean, there are
he doesn't know and I don't know.
If they shoot down the gun, the helicopters, then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Come out with...
Or suppose that that does incite a segments of the Russian military to simply move down there and force. Is that what you want?
Well, if I were shepherding my grandchild across an open area of downtown Sarajevo, where all the trees have been chopped down so that my loved ones can have some heat at night, and bullets are whizzing by me and other mortar shells being launched at me, a civilian, and my child from a hill in Sarajevo, I'd be a little impatient at the propensity on the part of otherwise very leading, courageous social critics to sit around and wonder what the consequences of this will be.
Really?
If we sat around and wondered what the consequences would be,
Really?
For example, well, you're going to take me...
I mean, suppose that, first of all, the people in Sarajevo are not calling for armed intervention. Secondly, Suppose that they think it through. It's not very hard to think, and say, well, there are missiles being shot at me. Well, the answer is they wouldn't. And we have to ask whether the actions that are sometimes mindlessly being proposed might have that consequence.
Well, I do thank you for your patience in my effort to explore...
I think it's worthwhile exploring.
Well,
it is not. We always tend to go for the easy answers. Let's bomb them. Let's nuke them. Let's get them.
I know that.
You know.
And if we want to do the Washington and stop lots of atrocities.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're in the... with 20 seconds. Well, we won't start this new subject. We should tell you once again that Manufacturing Consent is the title of a full-length documentary on the work of Noam Chomsky, who, yes, does speak as one of the world's leading social critics. We'll be back in just a moment.
You know our competitors.